Hey, this is your name. And they say it ain't easy.
Gang Green have their man.
Jets got themselves a great Robert Saleh.
Talk about all gas, no brake.
A great one.
We're not talking about effort on the field. We're talking about the process at which we do things.
I'm not going to lie to you.
Hurry up. Keep your foot on the pedal. Base.
There's no way I'm not going to have enthusiasm on the sideline.
Hey, own this rep. The New York Jets
Can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Ain't Easy Being Green podcast, broadcasting to you live from beautiful, amazing, picturesque Crystal Lake Studios in Putnam Valley, New York. My name is Keith Farrell. I'm joined, as always, by the number one Jet fan in the state of Texas, my colleague and co-host, Michael Lagaris, everybody.
What's up, Jet fans? What's up, Keith? How are you?
And he's in the building, as always, on a weekly basis. Again, number one high school football coach in the nation today, my cousin Sammy O'Hare. What's up, Sammy?
Jet fans, what's going on?
Very special guest this week also, writer, podcaster, YouTube sensation when it comes to the New York Jets here. Matt Oleary in the building. Matt, what's going on, dude?
Love that energy on the intro, man. I'm like ready to run through a brick wall. Are you sure you're not the football coach? I'll take you any day.
And I'm stoked to have you here. We're going to talk about the New York Jets passing game, kind of compare that to the rest of the division now. We were speaking before the show. It seems like this year might be a year we actually have a passing game to talk about. See what happens with that, guys. Matt, before we get into that, I know on your show on YouTube, on your podcast, and different places you've spoken about this offseason already, but I just want to ask you, obviously a lot of changes this offseason, a lot of draft picks that people are excited about. Free agency, I think Joe Douglas was pretty shrewd with his moves here. Before we get into the main topic this week, why don't you just let some of our listeners know what you think about this offseason, how Joe Douglas did fill in some of these holes for the New York Jets.
Yeah, I think he did a phenomenal job. And going into this offseason, he had both a lot of cap space and a lot of draft capital. So I think everyone knew that it was going to be an offseason of changes, and it was just whether or not those changes and those moves would live up to the expectations. But I think they have, and I think he even exceeded expectations in some regard. Absolutely love what he did in free agency, bringing in 2 tight ends. I think that's going to be super beneficial to this passing attack. I mean, last year we saw the Jets try to trot out Ryan Griffin and Tyler Croft and guys like that. It was a tough watch, but now it's going to look completely different with Conklin and Uzama. And then you bring in Laken Tomlinson too, who's going to help your young quarterback, which is just phenomenal. I'm all about that. And, you know, they added a couple pieces in the secondary, and then the NFL draft, I think, is what really stole the show. You had Sauce Gardner 4th overall. You're able to add a premier wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You add Jermaine Johnson in a surprise trade up, and then another surprise trade up where you land arguably the best running back in the class. So this team looks really different going into 2022, and I think they'll be much more competitive.
Yeah, it was strange to see the draft, post-draft, I should say, Matt. So many different publications give the Jet that tremendous grade. We're not used to seeing that. Even on paper, you never know what happens when the season rolls out, but normally you don't see A+, A-, those type of grades for the Jets there. I think the draft was tremendous. The tight end help, man, in free agency, and the draft with our boy Rucker from Ohio State. I think that's going to change the offense. Breece Hall is going to be a big change to the offense. And hopefully this passing game is going to improve. Last year, we averaged about 208 yards a game, and that's with those great games with our boy, the legend, Mike White. Raising those stats up, but with a few decent games from Flacco. If it was just our boy Zach Wilson, that stat might be even a little lower. That's what we want to get into this week. Now, last week, just so everybody knows, Mike was at Disney World, but while his family was sleeping and his brother's sleeping, everyone's taking it easy, you know what he's doing? He's on PFF, crunching the numbers all night long for this show right here, guys. Okay, I want to get into that right now, Mike. You looked at some of these offensive line stats. You looked at some of the pass catchers, Mike. You looked at the quarterbacks. You broke down the numbers on PFF. When it comes to the offensive lines, Mike, now we're going to get to the passing attack as a whole here. Let's start with the offensive line here, Michael. When it comes to the offensive line, the PFF rankings, you went through them last year. You saw the projections for this year. What did you come up with, Mike?
Yeah, so I looked at PFF. I wanted to look back and see where did the Jets rank from a pass blocking perspective. What did PFF say about the Jets and the rest of the AFC East, and how did the Jets stack up? Essentially, the New York Jets were 3rd overall from a pass blocking perspective. New England Patriots were number 1. Obviously, they got Trent Brown over there at right tackle, Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews at center. They had a pretty solid offensive line there for Mac Jones. Number 2 was the Buffalo Bills with Deion Dawkins at left tackle, headed up by Spencer Brown and Mitch Morris with center. And then the New York Jets, George Fant had a very good pass blocking grade at about 75.1, which was a pleasant surprise, really. He may be looking for a contract extension here soon with the New York Jets. Elijah Vera Tucker came in around 56.9. We want to kind of see a little bit more from him. He's going to be moving over to right guard. Connor McGovern had a near 70. Greg Van Roten, obviously he's out of here. He was our one weakest cog there at about a 53, and then Morgan Moses. So we had a pretty decent offense, came in third. Offensive line gave Zach pretty decent protection, and then Miami Dolphins were an absolute train wreck with Leanne Etchenberg, 46.9. Austin Jackson was the left guard, 49.1. They were just absolutely terrible. So moving into 2022, there's been some changes. And I would say at this point, the New York Jets did improve from last season. Looks like George Fant most likely, guys, is probably going to be the left tackle starting off. The organization definitely trusts him on Zach Wilson's blind side. Mekhi Becton, I'm not really sure where the weight is at this point. I think it's below 400. I was listening to Rich Cimini today on his podcast. He does believe it's below 400, but remember when he was in combat, his weight was at 362. So I don't think his weight is where they want it to be, and he's going to have to earn the spot, but I believe he's probably going to be playing at right tackle. So from a projection perspective, as a rookie, he had a 76 grade. That's what I gave him. I projected him at 76 at the right tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker, I put him about a 60 at right guard, near what he did last year. Connor McGovern kept him the same. We added a Pro Bowl left guard, Lincoln Tomlinson, 75.2 and pass blocking, and then George Fant 75.1. So with that, the Jets, I believe, are going to have the best pass protection for any quarterback in the AFC East next year, according to what the potential protection looks like. The New England Patriots, they're starting a rookie at left guard, Cole Strange. I don't know how that's going to work out. He was a surprise ad there. I had put him in there at about 60. Mike Onwenu is starting at right guard. He was starting at left guard and then got benched for Ted Karras, I believe, or Karras. I'm not sure how you say his name. He's gone. So that's a new starter there. So their pass grade dropped a little bit projected for next year. I got them at number 2. The Buffalo Bills, they added Roger Saffold from the Tennessee Titans at left guard. He was a scrub. 44.8 was his pass block grade. And they added Ryan Bates, who only had 294 snaps last year from Philly at right guard. They'll still have Mitch Morris, Spencer Brown, and Dawkins. And then the Miami Dolphins, they did add a big weapon or a big blocker in Terran Armstead from the Saints. Excellent ad there, 85.6 at left tackle. They moved their previous left tackle to left guard. Connor Williams, they got in free agency from Dallas. Very good pickup. Robert Hunt returns at right guard. And then they took Austin Jackson, the left guard, who was a scrub, and moved him to right tackle. So overall, the projections I have, the New York Jets, number 1, Patriots are number 2, Miami Dolphins will be number 3, and actually the Buffalo Bills, according to what I'm seeing here, the moves they made using their PFF grades from last season, will come in 4th from a pass blocking perspective.
Yeah, the Bills surprisingly don't look on paper like they have the strongest line, but who knows when Josh Allen can move like he does. Maybe they haven't invested in that position because of that, Mike. I think one interesting note with the Dolphins, they signed Terran Armstead, who could have been the best free agent in all of free agency, but he plays left tackle, and their quarterback is left-handed. And they're moving Austin Jackson to right tackle, and he's probably the worst pass blocker on the whole line, which I thought was interesting. You probably saw that too, Matt. What do you think about that? And we're going to get some questions here I want to ask you about the Jets' offensive line. But when it comes to the Dolphins and the kind of way they shaped it up, Connor Williams is tremendous, and Armstead's tremendous too. So their line last year was so bad, it seemed like these are upgrades, of course, and Eichenberg should have been playing guard anyway. But their right tackle is going to be Austin Jackson, one of the worst pass blockers on the team. Do you think that's balanced the best way, considering they have a left-handed quarterback?
No, I'm with you. That's strange to me. I don't know why you would want your arguably, like you said, your worst offensive lineman now protecting your quarterback's blind side. That doesn't make any sense. And you brought in Armstead, who is phenomenal.
Yeah.
With the Saints, he put up great numbers every single year with them. You know, he's a really, really good tackle, and you're going to play him on the left. And for most teams, that works because most teams, they have a righty quarterback, but the Dolphins are a rare team where they have a lefty quarterback, and they're going to continue to play him at left tackle. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I was surprised with the Bills numbers too, by the way, when what you guys were talking about earlier. I thought that they would have ranked a little bit higher, but specifically, I mean, here with Miami, they did a lot to try to improve, but I don't know if it'll be enough with that the weaker link, on the right side.
Yeah, dude, that's what I mean, me and Mike, when we went through the numbers too, I would just hit me like yesterday. I'm like, wait a minute. He's lefty, so this doesn't seem to make that much sense. I mean, you can't move Armstead to right tackle, of course, but just seems like an interesting way to shape your line. I want to ask you, Matt, from a pass blocking standpoint, you know the numbers from the Jets last year. You know the personnel we rolled out there last year, and the year before, it seems like it's a little bit better every year. But considering the guys we've added this year, we got Tomlinson now. We're going to move AVT over to the right side of the line. We're moving Becton more than likely over to right tackle. Comparing last year's line to this year's line, do you see a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the pass blocking?
Yeah, I definitely think they will improve as a pass blocking unit. And to me, I think George Fant is the best pass blocker on this offensive line. I think that's what he really thrives at. And it would seem, based on what we just talked about with Tua, it would make sense to have your best pass blocker on the left side. So I think Fant playing like that just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
Now, with Becton coming back, as a rookie, he was very promising, but he was significantly better as a run blocker than a pass protector. And I kind of got that same vibe last year from Elijah Vera-Tucker. So I think there's room for improvement in terms of pass blocking. But I know we're not doing run blocking here, but I have no concerns at all with this offensive line as run blocking. They're going to be one of the best run blocking lines in all of football. From a pass protection standpoint, I think you're going to need some of those young guys to just take that next step forward in their development.
Yeah.
Understood. So New England, like we were saying, did, from a pass blocking perspective, have the best protection last year. Now, Ted Karras had a 76.9 grade, and he's gone. And he's replaced by Cole Strange. And then also their right guard, Shaq Mason, had a 73.1 grade, and he's gone. And they got Owanu, who's a third-year player who's benched last year for Karras. Those are the major changes for the New England Patriots. They have Trent Brown. We know he's a beast. Yeah. Right tackle, 81.2. David Andrews is still the center. Do you think the New York Jets, their unit, will be now on par with the New England Patriots? Do you think they're actually ranked ahead? I actually have them projected ahead. But I ask you, what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, but I would give a slight advantage to the Jets here. And it's for those reasons, like you just mentioned, with Cole Strange, a rookie coming in to play left guard. You don't know what you're going to get there. I liked Cole Strange coming into the draft. I thought they reached on him by like 3 rounds, but someone who was, I thought was a good guard, guard prospect. But again, plugging in and being a starter at left guard is not an easy thing, and there's going to be some ups and downs. And I don't know a ton about Onwenu, the right guard here, but obviously it's not in the same stratosphere as what Shaq Mason was. I mean, he was a good quality guard, a good starter that you just lose, and you're taking a major flyer on this guy. It's risky. And to me, I think that's where it sets apart, because the Jets' biggest risk on their offensive line is Mekhi Becton, who at least as a rookie flashed and was really solid. So I'd rather go with the higher ceiling risk than Onwenu, who, I mean, he has a pretty low floor. So that's
Yeah, Owanu played as a rookie, played 92% of the snaps his rookie season at left tackle, I believe. And then the second year he played at left guard, and then he got replaced. He only played 62%. His efficiency just dropped. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but I completely agree with you. I want to just ask now, Sammy, from Buffalo Bills now, right? Like, so you heard Matt was a little bit surprised with the numbers from the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills had Ike Bodiger at the left guard. He's gone. Okay. And they had Darrell Williams at right guard, and they replaced him with Roger Saffold. Okay. Pass blocking, Sammy, 44.8. What the? Okay. All right. Hold up. And then they add Ryan Bates. Cat only played 294 snaps last year, so he was hurt, and they moved him in at right guard. Sammy, I honestly feel like the Buffalo Bills took a big step back here from a pass blocking perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it really seems that way. I would say one of the hardest things about offensive line groups, especially when they're new, is getting them to work cohesively as a unit together. So by replacing guys, even though they didn't do too great last year, by not bringing in quality dudes who are going to be leaders on that offensive line, I think they're really going to struggle. The fact that they're not very good, and they also don't have that one guy who's going to be the glue for that whole offensive line. You know what I mean?
Line on paper does not look great. They have Allen running like crazy out there in the backfield. Dawkins is good, so they got his blind time protected. Besides that, not that great on paper, but we'll see how it shakes out. Hopefully their line just falls apart, Mike, because you know we hate those Hill people up there in Buffalo. Mike, I want to get into some of these pass catchers now, bro, because this is where I think it's very interesting what we're going to be bringing to the table this year as opposed to previous seasons here when it comes to weapons for our boy Zach. Mike, you broke the numbers down on PFF also when it comes to pass catchers on, we're just going to phrase it that way because it could be tight end, wide receiver, running back, etc., everybody. Pass catchers for all the teams last year, Mike, and then what the Jets and the AFC is going to be bringing to the table this year from PFF. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, man. It was just like what you said before. I mean, in past seasons, the Jets really had nothing to offer from a talent perspective. But right now, as we get into some of these numbers, we're pretty excited because it looks like that we've caught up. We may not be ahead in this arena, but we're definitely playing ball with these guys. So last year, the number one unit, what I did, Matt, just so you know how I got the number here, the cumulative number, I took your top three receivers from a passing PFF perspective and the top tight end. And I took those four and I averaged it. And that's the number that I got as a unit. Okay. So your top three receivers and your top tight end. So the number one unit using that framework was the New England Patriots, actually. Bourne, Myers, and Harry, 77.8, 74.7, and 68.7, and then Hunter Henry at 75.
Yeah, Henry helps that out.
Now, I'm not saying they had the best unit, but it was the most efficient unit from a PFF perspective. And number two was the Buffalo Bills. Gabriel Davis actually had the highest grade, Diggs, Beasley, and Knox. Number three was the Miami Dolphins with Devontae Parker, Waddle, Wilson, and then Gesicki. And then New York Jets way last, okay? Because all of those were like 74, 73, 73, a top aggregate number. Ours was 64.8. We had Moore, Elijah Moore, number one, and then Davis, Crowder, and Croft. Croft was a complete scrub. We already know what's going on there. So that's how that's how 2021 ended. Now, going into 2022, there's been some changes. Now, the New York Jets, I project from what I see, still fourth, but our aggregate number, our cumulative number is right there with everybody else. So number one, I've got the Miami Dolphins most improved. So they've got Waddle, they've got Wilson, they got Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had an 84.6, best grade in the whole division. Okay, and Mike Gesicki. So they got 76.3, number one. Number two, New England Patriots, they kind of stayed exactly where they were. Added Parker into that mix. That's the only change they have. The Buffalo Bills actually decreased because they lost Beasley and Sanders, but they added in Crowder. Crowder actually wasn't as good, according to PFF. So they actually decreased a bit. And the New York Jets now went from 64.1 all the way up to 70.1. Moore, 71.2. Davis, 68.8. I projected Garrett Wilson at 70, which is about where Moore was. I think that's pretty decent. And then the biggest thing is Conklin. Conklin's PFF grade is really, really good, 70.4. So now, again, do we know CJ Uzomah is going to start? Who knows? But what I'm saying is I do believe the New York Jets have closed the gap from a talent perspective. There is, I'm sure, a whole lot of room for the Jets to grow in this area. I think that they were disadvantaged a ton last year, but I think they've definitely closed the gap. So, Keith, that's what I got so far as changes.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's what I want to ask Matt. I mean, Mike, and if we use the top 3 receivers and then the number 1 tight end as the aggregate, obviously we're not going to end up that highly ranked. However, if you factor in the fact that we're probably going to be throwing the ball to Breece Hall and Michael Carter, and I'm sure Ruckert's going to get some targets, and Uzoma, I think in totality, the Jets are comparable to everybody else. Maybe not at the top end. We don't have a Diggs right now on paper. Who knows what Garrett Wilson's going to be? Who knows what Elijah Moore is going to be? We don't have a Tyreek Hill. I understand that. And Waddle looked good last year. I'm not the biggest Waddle fan, but he did look good. So I'm not trying to say the Jets are head and shoulders above anyone here. But let me ask you, Matt. I mean, like we said, we drafted Wilson. They have Uzoma. They have the tight ends, like you mentioned earlier. Elijah Moore coming back. Corey Davis, Michael Carter. A lot of weapons out there for Zach Wilson. This unit right now, I mean, I asked you the same question with the offensive line. I'm just going to ask you the similar question here with this wide receiver pass catcher group. This unit here compared to last season, does it not seem like it's just leaps and bounds ahead of what we had on paper going into 2021?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so dramatically improved. And I think the best way to describe it is the amount of depth that they have. And I think you said it perfectly. They don't really have the top end talent like a Buffalo or Miami after those trades, for bringing in Tyreek Hill there. But when you look at the totality, like you said, from top to bottom, they could hang because of all the different other weapons. And then that's not factoring in Michael Carter and Breece Hall catching the ball out of the backfield. So I think their versatility and diversity on the offensive side of the ball will help close that gap even more. So, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, when you're comparing the other teams in the AFC East, they definitely have the more top end talent, but that doesn't mean that this offense isn't going to be dramatically improved for the Jets this year.
Yeah, and Davis's ranking there for the Bills, Mike, surprised me. I mean, he's a good receiver. I know he's an ascending receiver. People compare him to maybe like a Chris Godwin. I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. I thought Knox was good. Crowder's rating wasn't great. But I mean, Josh Allen seems to always find the open man. So that he frustrates me. No matter who's out there, the guy's finding whoever's open, which is frustrating as hell. I think we probably do still come in 4th, Mike, by a little bit. But like Matt was just alluding to, when it comes to the overall talent, I don't care if we have a guy. I don't want even the Jets to have a guy. I shouldn't say this. It'd be nice to have a guy with 1,500 yards, right? But say you have Wilson and Garrett, Moore and Wilson both get a little bit over 1,000, and you have 2 tight ends over 500, and you have a running back catching 400 yards. I mean, if we could spread the ball around, those are the most effective offenses in the NFL. That goes back to the dawn of time here. So, I mean, that's really what you're looking for. Mike, with your ranking, is that how you had it? You still had the Jets coming in at number 4?
Yeah, I still got the Jets in number 4. So, right now we got Miami 1, New England 2, Buffalo actually 3, and the Jets 4, but Buffalo is probably number 2. So let me ask Matt, if we're looking at the Buffalo Bills with Gabriel Davis, with Diggs, with Crowder and Knox, compared to what we have with the New York Jets, and again, like Keith was saying, factoring in the Carters and the Breece Hall, how close is right now the New York Jet receiving core, the receiving team, with the Buffalo Bills? How much did they close the gap in that regard?
I definitely think they closed it a good chunk, but they are a ways away until they have that proven bona fide number 1 guy. I think that both Moore and Wilson have the potential to do that, but they have to show it for me on the football field for me to put them in that same conversation. And like Davis he's a solid receiver. He came on strong for them last year, especially in the playoffs. We know Jamison Crowder well. When he's on the field and healthy, he's a very, very good slot receiver. And as mentioned earlier, Josh Allen, with how he's able to extend plays, it's just forever. You can hold on to that ball and find somebody who's open. Where the Jets do have the advantage, though, in the passing attack, I would say is the running backs. I think
Absolutely.
The Jets' running backs out of the backfield is going to be significantly better. And I think you hope that the Jets' tight ends develop into what Dawson Knox was last year for Buffalo. Such a good red zone threat for them. And, they're a little bit behind in that regard. But if you want to do a silver lining positive, it's the running backs out of the backfield.
Dude, I agree 100%, because if you look throughout the rest of the division here, I mean, Harris didn't catch any. He had 100 yards, I think, receiving last year for the Pats. Stevenson didn't catch the ball. Chase Edmonds wasn't that bad when he was in Arizona catching the ball. He's not that bad an option at receiver. But Mostert doesn't catch the ball at all as the backup there in Miami. So, and then, I mean, Cook didn't catch the ball too much in college either. He's the backup running back there. Singletary doesn't catch the ball. So, that, I mean, when it comes to the running backs, we definitely have an advantage there. Let me ask you, Sammy. I mean, PFF has the Dolphins ranked as the best pass catcher group here when you bring their wide receivers and tight ends. They have Waddle, they have Hill, they have Gesicki, like we said. They brought Cedric Wilson in from Dallas. Do you have them as the best group here in our division, Sammy?
Yeah, I think they're pretty clearly number one, especially after the addition of Hill, because Waddle showed a lot of flashes last year of being that guy for them anyway. So now you just added another problem for a lot of defenses. So I think people are going to have a really tough time guarding those two guys this year, honestly. And Gesicki's not a slouch. That guy plays. He comes to play every Sunday. But I think in terms of well-rounded pass catchers, I think Patriots and the Jets have the most well-rounded because there's 3 layers of passing going on. So with Buffalo and with Miami, yeah, I've got to worry about the deep ball, but you're only really throwing underneath to a lot of guys or over the top. There's not a lot of backfield action. There's not a lot of screens happening, right? I don't have to worry about those things. And those things hurt a lot of defenses because those weird that one little screen bangs for 30 yards, and now you've got the opposing defense on its heels. So I think in terms of well-rounded, I think New England and the Jets have it. But in terms of the best receiving and most talented core, it's clearly Miami. And then Diggs is he's always going to be a problem. I know what it says about Davis, but Diggs is he's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, somehow Davis's PFF is above Diggs, which is just, they got to rethink the ranking system there. I don't know what that's about, dude. What are you going to say, Mike?
That's interesting, Sammy, that you said that. And actually, I do agree with you. So, Matt, let me ask you, New England Patriots, Bourne, Myers, they bring in Devontae Parker. We know what he is. Hunter Henry. That group from a receiving core, do you agree with what Sammy says about the depth? Because I think what he's saying is at all 3 levels, the New England Patriots probably have the most sound group along with the New York Jets. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, similar to the Jets, they don't have that number one bona fide stud wide receiver, but they have guys who can catch the football and, who are quality NFL starters. And they have 2 tight ends. I know Jonnu Smith struggled last year, but that's a player that I still like. Hunter Henry was very good. And, they can use their running backs out of the backfield a little bit too. So, yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think from a depth perspective, the Jets and the Patriots are in the same boat there.
All right, now let's get to the most important aspect of this passing game here, guys. Save the best for last. That's the quarterback position. I think everybody has Zach Wilson's stats memorized, all the diehard Jet fans from last year. The first 8 games were a disaster. The end of the season. One of those games, Titans games, was pretty decent, okay? But most of those games were not that great. End of the season, he played a lot better, or at least more conservatively, held onto the ball, played better, used his legs a little bit more. Mike, you dug into the PFF numbers with these quarterbacks. I know you're not the biggest Tua fan in the world, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say about him, Michael. When it comes to these QBs, 2021, Mike, what'd you come up with?
Oh my goodness. So we all know what the deal is here. Our boy Zach, he's way in 4th, 54.8 grade passing, right? Josh Allen, 77.5. He was actually number 2 at passing. Mac Jones was number 1. Interesting, right? Now, and like Josh Allen, we know he's the best quarterback in the AFC East. We know that. But a lot of his value is actually in his legs. He's a phenomenal passer. He pushes the ball down. His arm is crazy. But if you really step back and look at him as a quarterback and his decision making sometimes, you know what I mean? Remember all of our angst, like, is he accurate? He's still got those quirks. So we're going to see what happens without Dable. Okay, we're going to see. I'm not saying he's a scrub or anything. I know he's great, but I still, we'll see what happens. But according to PFF, he's number 2. Mac Jones was 1. Tua was 3 at 67.3, and Zach was 54.8. So, projections. I heard Sean O'Hare give a phenomenal projection for Zach Wilson. He said, I don't know if you guys heard this, look at Eli Manning's second year and compare that more to around what you're going to see from Zach Wilson. 3,200 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. And he said that because Eli Manning struggled just like Zach Wilson did in the beginning because he was trying to do too much. He wasn't letting the offense come to him, right? And he stayed in the same system with the same coaches, talked around what do I need to do, work in the offseason. And that second year, yeah, his completion percentage was about a 52%. So he didn't really hit a lot of completion the way he needed to. But you definitely saw the production, and there were the wins. And he said that's more around what he thinks Zach would be. And I think that, I'm not saying he's going to be 52% completion percentage, but I think that around 3,500 yards, 20-something touchdowns, 15 or less interceptions, I think that's around a 6. I put him at a 65 projection for next year. And I put everybody else in the same way. So next year I've got, Josh Allen will be 1. I got Mac Jones 2, Tua 3rd, and then Zach Wilson 4th. And you probably are going to say, well, shouldn't you have Tua higher because he's got those great weapons? Look, what is Tyreek Hill? He is a deep threat, right? What does Tua not do? Throw the ball down the field. So I know it looks good on paper. I want to see it because I don't believe, there's a lot of hype around here, and maybe I'm being a hater, but I'm real skeptical around Miami. But paying all that money to that left tackle for a left-handed quarterback, I don't know what they're doing down there, Maybe they'll hire Adam Gase as their coach. We'll see. But anyway, yeah, that's what I saw from a projections perspective, Keith, around our
Mike, didn't you hear Tyreek Hill said that Tua is better than Patrick Mahomes? So they're going to be fine. They'll be fine. He's the left-handed Patrick Mahomes apparently down there in practice. I don't know. Tua does everything around the line of scrimmage is basically where he throws the ball, which is why he's so efficient. They didn't even try to stretch it out with him last year. In college, he had a pretty decent long ball, and in the pros seems to have disappeared here. Maybe they didn't have the weapons. Maybe he just can't do it. Maybe he can't read coverages. Maybe their line, as we know, couldn't hold up long enough for him to even get the ball down the field. I don't know. I just know that Tua is a mystery to me. Definitely hasn't validated that pick yet with the number 1 selection there in the draft. I think Zach has a lot of room here to improve. Let's ask Matt what he thinks, man. I know you talked about it on YouTube plenty here already, but when it comes to our boy Zach, when it comes to everything they've been able to do in the offseason, I know there's a lot of variables that lead to why he may be successful this year. The new and improved running game, I think, is going to be one of the main ones, which is going to set him up for success here. But what do you think about his chances of you have to improve this year. He can't be as bad as he was last year. He was right at the bottom of the league. But do you think with everything they've done with the line, with the weapons, everything they've built around here going in 2022, we're going to see a leap here from our boy Zach Wilson?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think he's set up beautifully to do just that. And I keep using this expression, and I don't mean it in a negative way towards Zach Wilson. I mean it in a positive way towards Joe Douglas. There's no excuses for Zach Wilson anymore because with Sam Darnold, when he was here, there was always the excuse of, well, the line stinks, or, well, there's no playmakers for him, or, well, the running backs aren't any good. Well, that's not the case now for this anymore. You went out and you used the 10th overall pick on a wide receiver. You traded up. You got aggressive to get a stud running back. You already had Michael Carter. You had Elijah Moore last year. You brought in 3 new tight ends. You brought in an all-pro caliber left guard. He better play better this year. And I think he will. The expectations are very high for him. The number 2 overall pick. And for good reason, because what we saw from him at BYU was really exciting. And something else we saw from him at BYU is he got better year over year. So while he struggled as a rookie, which he did, I think everyone has to admit, even the highest Zach Wilson fans will have to admit that he struggled. I just think that overall with him, what we saw in the second half coming back from injury, he looked much more comfortable. And I think that carries over into year 2. And I think he could put up some good numbers for this team.
Yeah, he looked a lot more poised at the end of the year, and that kind of coincided with the offensive line also playing way better. That's not rocket science there. And he did seem like when he came back, he had a better grasp on things, played better. Some games, I'm not saying he was throwing 350 yards, but you go back, guys, watch the film on that Tampa Bay Buccaneer game. Probably the toughest defense they played towards the end of the year there. The Buccaneers needed that game, and he played great, man. That was probably one of his most impressive game of the season. Let me ask you, Sammy, when it comes to these quarterbacks, 1 through 4, I know number 1 is going to be Josh Allen. Mac Jones, I think, to a degree, is going to always be pretty efficient, but I don't see him being like a superstar quarterback, but he'll always be pretty efficient like he was last year. How do you have these quarterbacks ranked out for you, Sammy, with your 1 through 4?
Yeah, I have them the same. I have Josh Allen 1, Mac 2. I have Zach Wilson 3, and 2 at last. And there's a couple reasons I did that. In terms of projections, I just think I don't understand what they did with the offensive line. doesn't make any sense to me. They took two of the really important positions, one the most important for a lefty quarterback, the other one of your guard spots where you're doing a lot of pulling. You're going to need to get to the second level a lot, right? So you put terrible guys at those two spots. We'll see how that goes. But I think, and to kind of hit a little bit on what Matt said, like, I think with Zach, especially if he's everything that they're saying he is, right? He worked on his body, he works on his mind, he grasps things, he asks the right questions. You can't teach all of the other stuff he does really well. So I think this year he could have a great year, not just a good one. And I think looking at Eli's projections, like Mike brought up, I would even say he might have less picks because I don't really see them trying to do anything too crazy with the various weapons that he has. They can get super creative and still keep it really kind of conservative at the same time, if that makes sense, right? Because as a coach with all of that talent, you can run different snag and mesh concepts where you're just getting guys open in space and letting them be athletes. So that's a high percentage rate and a high completion percentage rate for the quarterback. And those are those nice, easy throws that you can pop a couple.
Yep.
So I think he's really poised for some good stuff upcoming this year.
Yeah, and like we were talking about last week, Sammy, with Breece Hall and what we're expecting to be a much improved running game. I mean, this play action should be there all day long. I mean, those throws usually are pretty highly, high percentage throws there. I think we're going to be setting Zach up. You did not see, even though they said they were going to do it a lot last year, because of maybe the score, game script, or whatever the case may be, we didn't see a lot of that last year. I mean, you saw right at the beginning of the year, Zach in 3rd and 10s in high pressure situations. They didn't really, I don't know if offensively necessarily they set him up to succeed, but Matt made a great point before when it came to Sam. We kind of always had an excuse for him. I did feel bad for Sam Darnold. Now, he went to Carolina. He didn't play well there either. But when he was here in New York, they didn't have great weapons for him. They didn't have a great offensive line. They didn't have a great running game. And there's none of those excuses here with Zach. I even think the defense is going to be improved, so we'll have the ball more often. We'll be in more advantageous positions as opposed to last year, where it seemed like they were always behind the 8 ball and he had to always fight from behind. Mike, what do you think when it comes to the quarterbacks?
One thing I've learned about Joe Douglas, and I think you guys can all agree, is he's very high on upside on skill sets. Okay, he thinks, hey, X player can do Y and no one else can do Y. Give me that skill and we can coach around it and improve our team. And that's really what Zach Wilson has a phenomenal skill set. Okay. But I think he was in over his skis coming into the NFL. I think the speed surprised him. I think that he was trying to learn way too much. He got into the season. He was forcing things, trying to play hero ball. His mechanics were all over the place. He wasn't even able to, it threw him off completely. You could see it. He was all jacked up. He got hurt. He saw Mike White come in there, go put his jersey in the Hall of Fame. He got to see Josh Johnson go in there, actually operate the offense and learn, oh my God, I don't have to force things. I don't have to push it. I can let the game come to me. I can let the reads come to me. Let me just complete the damn ball. And so the second half of the season, he kind of learned by watching. And then you saw the turnovers and everything come down, and he started getting more used to the game. Now, I am not sure how this is going to turn out next year, but I do know this. He now has a better handle on the playbook. He does feel more comfortable in the huddle, it sounds like. And I believe that we are going to see a more confident quarterback. But most importantly, he has to make the right decisions. He's got to let the game come to him. And he's just got to, play ball. All those great, amazing throws that you see every Sunday from these great quarterbacks. It's not like they're trying to force those throws. They understand the offense and they just let it come to, like you've seen Tom Brady. He'll like dink dunk, boom, touchdown. Like it wasn't, that was the play. And that's just how you play the game. So let's see what he does there. Now, being that said, how bad we saw Zach forcing things and seeing Mac Jones, how efficient he was. Matt, if you had an opportunity right now to redraft, would you draft Mac Jones at 2 instead of Zach Wilson based on what you've seen?
No, I wouldn't. And the reason for that is because I think you have, especially at the quarterback position, you have to draft for ceilings. And while Mac Jones came in and looked like the best rookie quarterback last year, when it's all said and done, when their careers are over, I'd be very, very surprised if he had the best career out of everyone. I think he was the most pro ready He was a little bit older than some of these guys too. And, he wasn't asked to do too much. He ran that system to a T, and he was put in a perfect situation where all these other rookie quarterbacks, here with Zach Wilson, awful situation. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, brutal situation.
Man, brutal.
Yeah, Justin Fields, Chicago. I don't know if that got any better. That is still a brutal situation.
No,
but from a talent perspective, I'll take their traits over the traits that we have seen from Mac Jones. So I wouldn't do it because I think the best case scenario with him, he's like a middle of the pack quarterback, where all these other guys with their athletic ability and the raw traits that they have that top 10 potential. So I'll take that gamble every time.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. You look, Mac Jones went to the Patriots, so he went to probably the best team of any of those rookie quarterbacks that we mentioned, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Bears. None of those teams were in good shape last year. Regardless, you could have thrown Patrick Mahomes any of those teams. He might have had a tough time, So the Patriots were the team that was ready just to plug a quarterback in who could game manage. I'm not saying Mac Jones is just going to be a game manager, but I kind of agree with Matt where what you saw from him last year was great for a rookie, but I don't see it getting that much better for Mac Jones. He might be someone who's efficient like he is last year for the rest of his career, but not someone that I think that is going to flirt with a 40 touchdown season one year or 5,000 yards or anything like that. Where I think what Matt's saying and what Jet fans hope is a guy like Zach Wilson, what we've seen at BYU, what we've seen as what they project the ceiling to be, could be one of those guys, could be flirting with Pro Bowls, not making it as a seventh alternate like Mac Jones last year, complete Fugazi Pro Bowl appearance, which I'm not counting. I'm still not counting. It doesn't matter. You still haven't drafted a Pro Bowler since 2013, Jamie Collins, Patriots. Mike.
So do you, and I'll start off with Matt. Do you guys think that Josh Allen, it sounds like Josh Allen is this, is he the best quarterback in the NFL right now?
Oh, that is a really tough question. I think I'll still say Patrick Mahomes, but it's really close. It's so close. He's no worse. I think he's no worse than 3. If you want to put Rodgers 2 and Allen, yeah. You can make a strong case for it, but I still lean Mahomes
because he's so dangerous on the ground.
That's what
he
it
really
is
so damn dangerous on the ground. And you watch the Jet games, this dude, he's a monster, man. And I don't think that he's going to have as long of a career as everyone or the Hill people hope he has, because if he runs like this for the next 10 years, look at what happened to Cam Newton. It's not gonna, you can't survive in a league like this taking that type of abuse.
Yeah, it's tough to sustain it because he doesn't really run out of bounds, the dude. He's a monster. He's gigantic. He just runs right into people. And you could do that when you're 24 and 25 and 26, but it's like a boxer, man. Those body shots in the first, second, and third round come back to get you late in the fight there. Hopefully that's the path that we send Josh Allen on to early retirement with him keep running the ball. He's as good as it gets, though. I think I agree with Matt. Now, last year's quarterback rating, I think, was around a 92. That's about 15 points lower than the previous year, but he's still tremendous. 36 touchdowns, 15 picks last year. He runs the ball. He does it all. They talk about the new age quarterbacks being a threat, throwing it and running it. It's a nightmare to match up against guys like that because even if you plan everything right and you do everything right when it comes to your pass coverage, Josh Allen goes at the back and runs for 8 yards. That's frustrating as it gets. We don't have to worry about that with Mac Jones. I think the end of last year saw a little bit of Zach Wilson using the legs too, which I hope he does the beginning of this year because that was helpful. Mike, I would say I would still put Patrick Mahomes a little bit ahead of Josh Allen here. I think from a pocket passing perspective, I think he's much better. What do you think, Sammy, when it comes to the best QBs in the league? Who do you got? You still got Mahomes number 1, or is Josh Allen creeping up?
No, I got Allen at 3. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is old, and the past 2 seasons he still had like 40 touchdowns and only 4 picks. It's hard to take that guy and say he's not top 2 quarterback. So I got Mahomes, Rodgers, and then Allen because he scores 12 touchdowns on the ground. He throws for 5,000 yards. He throws for 45 touchdowns. The guy's super dangerous. But like you guys all mentioned, the shelf life on that is kind of short. And he's not taking hits like Vic and Jackson and these dudes took. He's a big guy, so he's taking monstrous hits comparatively, I think if you see that shrink down, I think he has a longer shelf life, but we'll see.
All right, Matt, let's hear what you got to say. New York Jets, 2022. We've made our, well, maybe we'll be able to touch in with you before the season starts again. We're going to go through the rushing attack, the defense with some other people in the next coming weeks. But I want to hear what you think about this upcoming year. You saw the schedule, all right? You know the new improved personnel we got. What do you think this year is going to look like for us?
I think it's going to be a lot better where they aren't completely done by Halloween. Now, I don't know if I'm ready to say like they're going to compete for a wild card spot because of just how stacked the rest of the AFC is. But
Yeah,
I
dude.
think there's no reason that this team can't win 7, 8, 9 games, somewhere in that range. With the amount of improvements we've seen on the roster, with everyone in the same system for another year, with Salah having another year under his belt, LaFleur as a play caller having another year under his belt. I think they'll be much more competitive, but I still think they're a little bit young and not quite there yet. But I think they'll be much improved. I think everyone, based on the last few years, will sign up for an 8-win season if this quarterback looks legit.
Well, Matt, I cannot disagree with you at all, but I think, like we just went over it, the Jets have, from a pass protection perspective, probably the best protection in the AFC East. They have closed the gap at receiver, right? So our receiving core is at the same level, maybe a little below where the rest of the AFC East is. So honestly, from a passing perspective, it all comes down to how good Zach Wilson is, right? That's where the value is, because, and we're just talking passing. If Zach can improve now that he has even better protection, now that he has better weapons, that will give him more opportunities and allow the game to come to him quicker, right? And now that he has a running game, that will open up play action for him, right? If this kid can take a leap, I know you said 8, 9, 7 wins, but there may be even more than that, depending on how Zach does. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's totally up to Zach with the floor and the ceiling of this team. I hope you're right. I hope they get up to that like 10-win mark, and maybe then you're flirting with a wild card spot. It is really all up to Zach. If he takes this monster leap, then yeah, the sky's the limit for this team.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, we've been waiting a long time for a leap from a quarterback, Jet fans. Long time, everybody. Hopefully this is the year we see it happen, man. I mean, I guess Darnold took a little bit of a baby leap there in year 2, and he improved, and he was decent enough, but not what we were looking for as Jet fans. We're looking for Zach for this year. I don't need 35 touchdowns this year from him. I just need him to be efficient and just to win football games. I think that's all Jet fans care about. Whatever the equation it is. Like last year, Matt, I remember when Mike White came in and had that one great game. And Jet fans are like, oh my God, man, you can't start this guy because of Zach Wilson and this and that. I'm 41 now, Matt. At this point, I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care who the coach is. I don't care what the process is. I just want to win. I just want to win. I just want the Jets to win. And hopefully Zach Wilson is the reason why we win. All our eggs are in the Zach Wilson basket here, man. But just get those W's. Right, guys? That's all we're looking for here. A successful season. Bring some joy to MetLife Stadium. Me and Sammy will be dancing in the stands, hopefully this year, all over Bills fans. That's all we got for you this week. I want to thank Matt Oleary for joining us. Matt, if anyone wants to get at you on any of your social medias or anything of that nature, where could they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. On YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, pretty much anywhere you can find me at Matt Oleary NY. We're talking Jets. We're talking football. We like to have fun, keep it light, and appreciate if you followed along.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Michael, when it comes to the AEBG universe, where can people find us?
Hey, we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. We're on Facebook at AEBG.JetsRadio, on Twitter at AEBG_NYJ podcast, and on Instagram at jet.AEBG.
You heard the man. On behalf of the biggest Jet fan in the state of Texas, Michael Agaris, on behalf of the #1 high school football coach in the nation today, my cousin Sammy O'Hare, and on behalf of Matt Oleary, my name's Keith Farrell. Get at you next week, everybody. Peace out.
fast.